Freddie No has did it again. Did it. Little Book Chapter 5 is here. An interesting blend of some very young whiskey, like really young. It's blended with some 15-year-old bourbon. We don't really know how much, but an interesting blend to say the least. Want to know more? Stay tuned. What's up, folks? I'm Jason C. from the MSRP, and today we're reviewing the latest Little Book release from Jim Beam. Chapter 5, which is named The Invitation, is a literal invitation to bourbon drinkers everywhere to expand their palates by exploring this blend of 4 whiskeys, which includes both young and old bourbons and a malted rye whiskey, all having special significance to Freddie No, being projects that he personally had a hand in developing over the years. So the Little Book brand is the first ever product release from Freddie No, 8th generation Beam distiller, son of current Beam master distiller Fred No, and grandson of legendary Beam master distiller Booker No. So Little Book is an annual limited release series, and it features new and unique high quality blends each year that feature Freddie's passion for blending and his curiosity for the limitless taste that can be achieved through the blending process. Little Book is named after Freddie's childhood nickname given to him by his family for the many qualities he shared with his granddad, the legendary Booker No. Now, the first edition of Little Book was released back in October 2017 and was named the Easy, which Freddie worked on the final recipe for over a year and tried more than 25 different blends of whiskey before he decided that it was just right and worthy of his first release. Since then, Chapter 2 brought a different blend of Canadian and American whiskey, and Chapter 3 was a crazy powerhouse blend of all Beam small batch offerings blended at cask strength. Easily the biggest hit so far, I think, from the lineup. Chapter 4 added a brown rice bourbon to the blend for a sweeter profile, which now brings us to Chapter 5. Okay, so the blend. Little Book Chapter 5 is a blend of 4 different straight whiskeys, 3 of which were distilled under Freddie's guidance and watchful eye. All right, let's pour this real quick, get some air in it. So the first part of the blend is a 2-year-old Kentucky Straight Bourbon distilled and barreled at a lower proof than normal, which creates a complexity not often experienced in a young whiskey, according to Freddie No. Portions of this 2-year-old whiskey were distilled to only 105 and 115 proof, which results in a more flavorful whiskey and is also the lowest proof point that Beam has ever distilled and aged in oak. It is said to be very viscous and concentrated in flavor. So the next part of the blend is a 3-year-old malted 100% rye that has never been released from the Beam distillery in its history. Supposedly it brings smoky, peppery notes to the final blend, but not traditionally common in a rye whiskey. So the last 2 parts of the blend is a 5-year-old Kentucky Straight Bourbon and a 15-year-old Kentucky Straight Bourbon. That 15-year-old is supposed to round it all out, bring it together, and balance out those youthful notes in the other 3 parts of the blend. This is available now for an MSRP of $125. It's bottled at 116.8 proof, uncut, unfiltered. I have seen this cheaper than MSRP each year this gets released. I've seen them, I think, released at Costco for about $90 sometimes. So 125 is the MSRP, but I feel like you can find this cheaper in other places. So let's try it. Now, I know what you guys are already thinking. There's some really young whiskey in here, and you're asking me to pay $125 for it. And I totally get that. It's the same thing that I thought. But, I mean, you really have to kind of try it, I guess, to really make a decision. So I did have one pour of this already. And I was pretty surprised with the results from the first pour, but let's see how it's opened up. First thing you get is that typical Beam nuttiness. It's all over this. That really hasn't gone anywhere. It's still there. I get a lot of very heavy vanilla extract. Actually, the tag will tell you, what you're maybe supposed to get. So let's see. Complex blend of oak, caramel, and subtle smoke on the aroma. Okay. I think I'll give them the smoke. I think I do get a little bit of a smoke char here. But I get a lot of heavy vanilla to go along with that nuttiness. I mean, it's a very typical Beam, you know, nose. There's nothing here that's making me say like, wow, that's different. There is some spice there. I do get like a rye bread type nose to it that might be coming from the 100% that malted rye. Some cinnamon. Definitely a good amount of spice here on the nose. Yeah, it's got like a spicy peanut type of balance here going on. I think you definitely get some of the oak too from the 15 year. Again, we don't know the proportions of what, you know, so all those four components, you know, it doesn't tell you, you know, 50%, 25, you know, 25% of this, 25% of that. It doesn't get into that detail, unfortunately. So we don't know how much 15 is in here. All right, let's go for a sip. So two things you notice right away. One is the spice of it. There's a very rich, spicy characteristic to it, especially on the front of the palate. A lot of cinnamon, a lot of spice, almost like kind of like cinnamon red hot. Then it gets to the mid palate. Then you get just again more of that vanilla. There's just so much vanilla going on in this blend. Again, more of that citrus is coming out. Still getting the orange zest. All right, so far so good. Man, it gets spicy. I'm not sure that's the proof or if it's the actual rye component in here, but it's carrying a lot of spice to the forefront. It is pretty viscous. You know, I think it's got a nice mouthfeel to it. Good orange. Again, a little bit of chocolate starts creeping up as well. The first couple sips I think are great. There's a really nice balance. The 15 year, I think you really do get in the beginning. But then, and this happened the first pour I got, the more sips I took, I feel like the 15 year bourbon in it, or those nice oaky aged notes, they start getting a little bit overpowered by the youthful whiskey in here. It doesn't taste green or anything, but there is a definite sharp, youthful type of experience that you get on the palate. I feel like the 15 year kind of dulls it out for a little bit, but the youthful notes they start creeping up a little bit. Yeah, the more sips you take, I just think the youthful notes start to creep up a little bit more. What's interesting is I feel like you can taste the components that's in this whiskey, that's in this blend. You could taste the oak and I think some of the age in the 15 year that's in here. I think the spiciness of the rye really takes over it mostly. Now, if the younger bourbons are just there for like the vanilla and the viscosity, I can get that part a little bit. But again, like I said, those youthful bourbon characteristics start overtaking a little bit. The finish, on the other hand, yeah, the finish is all more spice, a lot of vanilla, more like that cinnamon, like that red hot cinnamon. You know, the red hot candies start coming in on the back end. Nice creamy mouthfeel. You know, I gotta say it's, you know, I did not know what to expect with this blend, and I'm still really not sure what I think of it. I feel like every year Little Book kind of throws like this like curveball at me. Yeah, you know what? Let's compare it just to a straight Booker's. Booker's that I actually really like this year, the tag-along batch, and let's see how it compares. All right, so the reason why I'm pulling out a Booker's is because, you know, even though Booker's I still think is overpriced, it is cheaper than the Little Book. And I just want to see what differences there are here. Well, they actually smell pretty similar. You know, Booker's are typically between 6 and 7 years old. This is 6 years and 5 months. And the Little Book, you know, is that blend. But, yeah, on the nose, it's a little bit similar. Yeah, the Booker's tag-along batch kind of hits you with a lot of, you get a lot more of the caramel, vanilla richness, you know, nice punch of the cinnamon. Again, similar profiles. I think the difference with the Little Book is the spice. It's the spice, and there's also a drying aspect to the Little Book 5 that I'm not really crazy about. I don't know. The Little Book 5, it's an interesting blend. I think Freddie made a nice blend, but really, is it Is it worth the price they're asking for it? Let's go to the final breakdown. All right, so final breakdown, MSRP 125 bucks. Secondary, you're looking at 200 to 225. I think I've seen these for. Availability on this is limited, but Jim Beam tends to have really good distribution. And these tend to pop up, you know, in a lot of random places and sometimes even stay on the shelves. So even though it's limited, you might have a good chance of finding this one. So for value, you know, I would say the value's kind of low on this, just because we don't know what the you know, the proportions of the, you know, what the makeup of the blend is. We don't, you know, if we knew it was like 60% of the 15 year, it might be a little bit better of a value, but we don't know. We do know that there's, you know, 2, 3, and 5 year old whiskeys in here, which make it, you know, there's some really young whiskey in here. And for someone that doesn't know, you're asking someone to pay $125 for that, not knowing the proportions. That's a tough sell. What's the most I pay for this? You know, this to me is coming off just like a Booker's, but extra spicy. It's got a nice mouthfeel to it. Again, I feel like the blend works. I think what Freddie did was great, but there's nothing about it that's standing out to be like, okay, yeah, I'm happy to pay that extra money for it. Most I would pay a Booker's price for this, 80 to 90. Is this a recommend? For me, I would have to say no. I mean, if you're talking about the road home, chapter 3, with all those really nice high-aged barrel-proof versions of all the small batch offerings, oh man, that was so worth it. Absolutely delicious blend. You're asking people to pay 125 bucks, maybe higher, depending on where you're getting it, for 2, 3, and 5 year old whiskeys with the 15. Now, if you gave us the proportions, maybe that would change my mind. Like if I knew this was like half 15 year and, you know, the rest of it was kind of, you know, split up between that 2, 3, and 5 year, you know, maybe that would change my mind a little bit, but not knowing, there's not enough in this bottle that stands out for me to be like, oh yeah, go run and grab this for 125 bucks. I think if you're on a budget or if you just like Jim Beam in general, plenty of great offerings from Jim Beam. The Knob Creek single barrel at 120 proof, they're really hard to beat. The single barrel picks, I mean, you could get Booker's for cheaper than this, even if you like that Beam profile. If you're more of an exploratory person and you love everything that Freddie No is doing, look, I think what he did is he nailed the blend. I feel like you can taste a little bit of everything in the blend, but I feel like those youthful notes do start to take over a little bit. But if you are interested in what he does and how he's blending, it's a good blend. I just feel like the price point and not being transparent with the proportions is what kind of kills this for me. All right, guys, well, hope you enjoyed this review for the brand new Little Book 5 from Jim Beam. Hope you enjoyed it. If you did, hit that subscribe button below. Please hit the like button. If you haven't yet, follow me on Instagram, follow me on Twitter. Let me know if you've had this, what you think of it. Are you impressed? We're not even planning on buying this because of the components. And as I always say, it's not about the whiskey, it's the people you share it with. So cheers. I'll see you next time right here on the Mash and Drum. Take care, everybody.